she was just a poor maid. But when she had a terrifying dream about her billionaire boss, she did something no one expected. She begged him not to go to his business meeting. He laughed. He ignored her. And then, he vanished. This emotional African story is filled with betrayal, hidden secrets, and a twist that will leave you speechless. What started as a warning turned into a national scandal. Who betrayed him? And why was the maid the only one who saw it coming? Watch the full story to uncover how a humble maid uncovered a powerful conspiracy and shocked the entire nation.
Nora had never shaken so badly in her life. Her fingers trembled as she clutched the tray of orange juice, watching the man she worked for adjust his wristwatch in the tall mirror by the door. Every movement he made, his smirk, his calm, confident posture, only made her heart beat faster with dread. She wasn't sure if it was a dream or a warning from heaven. But the image refused to leave her mind: blood smeared on polished floors, flashing cameras, reporters screaming his name, and a single black briefcase lying open on a table, with no one sitting behind it. That vision had followed her all night. And now, the man in her vision, Chuka Nwanze, Africa's most envied billionaire, was about to walk into it. She had to speak. "Sir," she said, barely above a whisper, voice cracking. He didn't hear. "Sir, please, don't go." He paused, one hand on the door handle. Slowly, he turned to look at her. The air in the hallway froze. Nora felt 100 eyes on her. Other maids froze in place, and the butler behind her gasped. Chuka raised an eyebrow. "Did you say something?" Her throat burned, but she pushed forward, clutching the tray like it was the only thing keeping her from collapsing. I had a dream, sir. A very bad one. Something terrible will happen if you go to that meeting." For a second, she thought he might listen. His expression flickered, briefly. Then came the laugh. Sharp. Cold. Mocking. "You've turned into a prophet now," he said. "What's next? You'll read my palm?" She took a step closer, eyes wide with desperation. "Please. I know I'm just a maid. But I saw you vanish. There was a briefcase. People crying. Something's wrong, please, don't go." Chuka shook his head in disbelief, now laughing louder. "This is what I get for being nice to the help." Behind him, his 3 business partners, men in expensive suits with guarded eyes, watched quietly. "I'm late for a Billionaire meeting," he added. "Not a church revival." He turned and pulled the door open. But before he stepped out, Nora whispered, "You'll be betrayed by someone close." That stopped him. Only for a second. He didn't look back. The door slammed shut behind him, the echo trailing down the marble hall like a curse. Nora stood frozen. Her tray slipped from her hands, crashing to the floor. Orange juice splashed across her feet. She didn't move. And then, she felt it. The shift. The moment everything changed. The mansion was too quiet. Not the kind of quiet that meant peace, but the kind that comes before a storm. Nora sat alone on the edge of her bed in the servants' quarters, staring at the bruised spot where the tray had struck her leg earlier. She hadn't cleaned it. She hadn't moved. Her thoughts were louder than the silence. She'd warned him. She had spoken. And he laughed. But what haunted her now wasn't his reaction. It was the feeling she couldn't explain, that something was already unraveling. That the wheels were turning. Her eyes drifted toward the small wooden box beneath her bed. Inside it were only 3 items: a faded photo, a folded letter, and a necklace with a broken clasp. She pulled them out one by one. The photo showed a younger Chuka, arm around a woman with kind eyes and soft dimples, Nora's mother. The letter, she'd never had the courage to read. Until now. At exactly 2:16 p.m., the first alert hit her phone. Breaking, Billionaire CEO Chuka Nwan's missing after high-stakes business meeting in Ikoyi. Her vision blurred. The phone nearly dropped from her hands. Missing? She scrambled for the remote and switched on the small TV in the staff lounge. It was already on the news. Reporters, flashing red banners, panicked headlines. A dozen versions of the same sentence. He walked into the building. He never came out. No security detail. No footage. No confirmed sighting. Just one clue, a black leather briefcase left open in the conference room. Nora's heart dropped to the pit of her stomach. The briefcase. The exact one from her dream. She didn't realize she was sobbing until her chest began to ache. She pressed her hand to her mouth to keep from screaming. No one else knew. No one else had seen it coming. And now he was gone. Across Lagos, in a sleek, glass-walled apartment high above Victoria Island, Desmond Hugo raised a glass of red wine and smiled at the skyline. He had always hated how Chuka carried himself. How he made success look effortless. How he wore arrogance like a crown. But now, the king had fallen. Toast to shadows, he murmured. Beside him, Raymond sat in silence. His hands trembled around a whiskey glass, untouched. I didn't sign up for this, Raymond muttered. Desmond didn't even blink. Yes, you did. The moment you handed me access to the server room. This isn't a business move anymore. You've disappeared a man. Desmond turned slowly. You want to talk ethics? After you stole his passwords? After you rerouted his travel plans and wiped the building's surveillance? You're not innocent. None of us are. Raymond said nothing. He knew Desmond was right. But guilt had a way of sticking to his bones. At the far end of Mushin, inside a crumbling two-room apartment, Nora sat across from her aunt, an older woman with fierce eyes and tribal marks deepened by time. Auntie Jumok had once been a soldier's wife. She knew how to read a face. She knew Nora wasn't telling her everything. Talk. Nora handed her the letter. The one her mother wrote the year before she died. Auntie Jumok read it silently, lips pressed tightly together. When she finally looked up, her voice was low. So he doesn't know. Nora shook her head. And now he's vanished. I have to find him, Nora whispered. Her aunt stood up without another word and disappeared into the back room. When she returned, she held a slip of paper with a single name and number scribbled on it. Your uncle's old friend from military intelligence. Calls himself Bayo. He doesn't pick up unless he trusts the number. Tell him Jumok sent you. What do I say? Tell him the man who vanished is your father. And you know who betrayed him. Nora didn't sleep that night. Her aunt's words rang in her ears over and over. Tell him the man who vanished is your father. She had never said it out loud. Not once. Not even to herself. But the truth was a shadow she'd carried since she was a child, one her mother had whispered to her on her deathbed, voice weak but certain. Now the shadow had a name. And that name was missing. When the line connected, she nearly hung up. Hello. The voice on the other end was rough, sandpaper on stone. She forced her breath steady. My name is Nora. Jumok sent me. It's about Chuka Nwan's. He's my father. A pause. Then, where are you? They met at dawn under the rusting steel skeleton of an abandoned rail station on the outskirts of Lagos. Fog clung to the ground like a secret. Bayo looked like a man who had seen too much of the world. Gray beard, military boots, a scar running from his jaw to his collarbone. But his eyes, sharp, observant, softened slightly when he saw Nora. You favor her, he said. She nodded. My mother used to say the same. He motioned for her to sit on a broken crate. From his coat pocket, he pulled a weathered laptop. Before Chuka vanished, did anything strange happen? She told him everything. The dream. The briefcase. The warning. Chuka's laugh. And the names, Desmond, Raymond. He tapped a few keys. I've been tracking a few offshore moves tied to shell companies in Mauritius and Seychelles. Nothing concrete, until yesterday. A single spike in activity, over $200 million frozen in holding. All linked to a dummy account under Chuka's name. But he didn't do it, Nora said. No, Bayo replied. He didn't. Someone's trying to write him out of his own story. Back in Abuja, deep underground beneath a luxury compound with no signage, Chukanwan sat in darkness. The last thing he remembered was a glass of wine. Desmond's voice. A flash of pain in his neck. Then silence. He tried to scream. No one came. The room was empty, except for a dim red light blinking in the corner. A camera. They were watching him. He closed his eyes and thought of the girl in the hallway. The one with trembling hands and teary eyes. He had dismissed her so easily. Treated her like background noise. Now she was the only person he could see clearly. She knew. Bayo wasn't just retired intelligence. He still had tools. Friends. Strings he could pull. And one of them worked deep in Lagos telecom system. By noon, they had traced a signal. Raymond's burner phone pinged in Ikoyi. Let's go, Bayo said. Nora followed him into an old white pickup truck with a cracked windshield and a prayer sticker on the dashboard. She didn't know what scared her more, that Chuka might be dead, or that he might not be, and she'd have to face him with the truth. They found Raymond pacing outside a small compound behind an upscale bakery. He looked thinner. Nervous. Like a man being hunted. When Bayo stepped out of the truck, Raymond froze. I'm not part of this anymore, he blurted. I swear. Bayo said nothing. He just raised a small pistol and pointed it at Raymond's leg. Raymond fell to his knees. I can tell you everything, he shouted. They made me do it. Desmond, he's working with outsiders. It's a full setup. He paid off rogue agents. They've got Chuka locked in a private holding facility near Abuja. They're wiping his records clean, transferring ownerships, signing everything with his name. Nora stepped forward. Is he alive? Raymond met her eyes. And paused. I saw the letter, he whispered. You're his daughter, aren't you? She nodded. Raymond looked down in shame. He used to talk about your mother when he was drunk. I don't think he ever forgot her. Or knew he left something behind. Bayo cocked the gun. Where is the facility? Raymond scribbled the address with shaking hands. It's guarded. And they're planning the final move tomorrow. After that, he'll be a ghost. Nora's voice was calm now. Then we go tonight. They traveled under the cover of darkness. No police escort. No sirens. Just a battered pickup, a printed map, and a mission that had stopped being about money a long time ago. Nora sat in the back seat, fingers clenched around the photo of her mother and Chuka. The ink had faded, but her mother's smile hadn't. It was the only warmth she had now, the only piece of proof that what she was doing mattered. I used to think I wanted to work for him, she whispered. Just to be near him. Even if he never knew who I was. Bayo kept his eyes on the road. Maybe now he'll know the kind of daughter he has. She didn't reply. But her silence said everything. The facility outside Abuja wasn't on any official map. It sat behind a fake poultry farm with a rusted gate and empty pens. But past that gate, surrounded by electric fencing and armed patrols, was a two-story concrete building with no windows and only one entrance. This isn't a detention site, Bayo murmured. It's a disappearing place. They watched from a hill, hidden by the tree line. Through binoculars, they saw two SUVs parked out front. One of them was Desmond's. He's here, Nora breathed. And then, they saw him. Chuka. He was being led out by two men in plain black clothes. His hands weren't tied, but he walked like he had shackles on his soul. His face was bruised. Pale. His eyes dull, like someone who had stopped hoping. Until he looked up. Their eyes met. For a second, everything stopped. He frowned, confused. Then recognition flickered. Not full. Not clear. But something. Something in the shape of her eyes. The curve of her jaw. The way she looked at him like she wasn't afraid. Nora stepped out of the truck. And all hell broke loose. Gunfire exploded through the still night. Bayo fired first, two clean shots that dropped the guards near the entrance. Nora ducked behind the truck, heart racing. More men poured from the building. She could hear shouting, Desmond barking orders. Secure the room. Don't let him leave. But it was too late. Chuka had broken free, tackled one of his guards, and stumbled toward the woods. Bayo covered him with fire while Nora ran like her whole life had led to this one moment. They met halfway up the hill. He was gasping, bloody, stunned. But when she threw her arms around him, he didn't pull away. He just stood there, trembling. "Who are you?" he whispered. She stepped back. Tears rolled freely now. "I'm the girl you ignored at the door," she said. "The one who warned you." He stared at her. "You. And I'm your daughter." The woods burned with light behind them as more gunfire cracked through the trees. Obinna, the former driver, the man who had vanished years ago, appeared from behind a tree line, gun raised. He motioned for them to move. "Go," he shouted. They sprinted through the back trail, into the bushes, into the night. An hour later, they were hiding in an old church compound guarded by one of Bayo's trusted men. Chuka sat on a bench, shirt torn, head in his hands. "I saw your mother once after she died," he said quietly. "In a dream. She was holding a child. I thought it meant something was coming for me." Nora sat beside him. "It wasn't something. It was me." He looked at her. Finally, truly looked. And he broke. The billionaire, the man the world envied, the man who mocked a maid's dream, began to cry. Not because he was weak. But because, for the first time in years, someone had saved him. And it was the daughter he never knew he had. The church bell rang once, echoing into the early morning haze. Chuka sat by the window in the old wooden rectory, staring out at the sleepy hills of Abuja. His bruises were still fresh. His dignity, still fragile. But there was something in his eyes now that hadn't been there in years. Gratitude. And regret. Nora sat across from him with a steaming mug in her hands. The silence between them wasn't awkward, it was full. Heavy with the things that hadn't yet been said, and the things that no longer needed to be. "I had a daughter," he said finally. "All these years. And I was too blind to see her." "You didn't know," she replied. "I should have. I should have asked. I should have looked." She smiled faintly. "You weren't supposed to see me as your daughter. Just as a maid. A silent girl in the background. Not anymore." They both turned at the sound of footsteps. Bayo entered, holding a flash drive between two fingers like it was made of glass. "This," he said, "has everything. Wire transfers. Hidden accounts. Property deed signed in your name without your knowledge. Desmond's thumbprint was used on 3 of them." "And the consortium?" Chuka asked. "We sent what we could to 3 journalists already. 2 stations are preparing exposés. It goes live in an hour. Chuka leaned forward. They'll try to spin it. They'll fail, Bayo said. The public loves a good villain, but they worship a man who comes back from the grave. In a hotel suite 20 minutes away, Desmond watched the news explode across 3 channels simultaneously. Breaking, fraud ring uncovered, billionaire Chuka Nwan's framed in billion-dollar laundering scheme. Photos followed. Documents. Leaked audio of Desmond's voice, laughing. Footage from the facility gate. Obina's whistleblower's statement. Raymond's testimony. By the time Desmond reached for his phone, it was too late. The knock came at the door. When he opened it, 2 men in dark suits stood silently. Behind them, a camera flashed. That same evening, Chuka stood in front of a crowded press hall in Lagos. He wore no suit. No gold wristwatch. Just a plain black shirt and his father's old agbada draped over it. Nora stood beside him. He began without a teleprompter. There are moments in a man's life when he realizes that his empire is not built on power or wealth, but people. And the person who saved mine wasn't a board member. Wasn't a business partner. She was a maid. A girl I never acknowledged. A daughter I didn't raise. He paused, letting it sink in. Today, I announced the formation of the Ada Nora Foundation. Half of my personal wealth will fund education, security, and legal protection for domestic workers across Nigeria. And most importantly, this is the beginning of my apology. He turned to Nora and whispered, just loud enough for the microphones to catch. I'm proud to be your father. If you'll let me. Nora's voice cracked with a laugh. Let's start with lunch. The crowd erupted in applause. Weeks later, she returned to the small room in the servants' quarters to gather her things. She stood for a moment in the doorway, staring at the cot, the cracked mirror, the place where she had once cried in silence. She didn't need this place anymore. But she would never forget it. It was the room where a maid had once dreamed, and where a daughter had been born. As she walked out with her small bag, the staff stood in a quiet row, watching. Some bowed their heads. Others smiled through tears. And Chuka, her father, stood by the car, the door held open just for her. She stepped in. Not as a maid. But as the girl who saw what no one else did.